Hello and welcome to another episode of What Do People Do podcast. Today we've been really lucky and we've got a special guest with us. What we're going to do is get him to introduce himself. So what I'd like you to do is tell us your name, your age and what you do.
Hello, so I'm Jacob Pountney, I'm 26 and I'm an assistant fashion designer.
Oh, I think this is going to be every time. Yeah. It's because I'm so intrigued by people. But I think this is going to be a good episode because not us three don't think that we know much about fashion really. We like to wear clothes.
Especially not me.
But, I mean,
nothing about
the ins and outs of fashion and that thing. So I think it's going to be really interesting to speak with you and get a bit more in depth of what people do in the fashion industry.
Exciting.
So we're going to kick it off the same way we start every podcast. And we're going to start a little bit deep. And the first question we're going to ask you is, so take yourself back a few years, 10-year-old Jacob Pountney. What did you want to be when you were 10?
Oh my God, I wanted to be all sorts. Like, I think I wanted to be a pop star. I wanted to be an actor. Like, I remember wanting to be a chef at one point, like, which is hilarious because I literally hate cooking. I literally couldn't think of a worse thing to do. But I did also, one of my big things was I wanted to be a fashion designer.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's kind of always been in me, I guess. It's always been in me a little bit.
What do you think it is that's kind of been in you? What is that?
I don't know, like, I just remember from when I was being really little, like, I just remember just being obsessed with clothes and just, like, seeing, like, people wearing stuff. I was always obsessed with magazines. Like, I was always reading, like, about celebrities. I've always been a little bit obsessed with celebrity culture and reality TV. And I was just, I just loved kind of, like, seeing what people were wearing. And I think, like, as I got older as well, I sort of became a lot more conscious about what I put on, because obviously when you're little your parents dress you, and then you get to that age when you're like 12, 13, you're like, no mum, I don't want to wear that. Like
my mum took me to Tesco for my clothes until I was about 16.
That is abuse.
My mum
don't knock Tesco because it's not too bad nowadays, to be fair.
I know, some of their like work clothes are quite nice.
Well, I've seen quite a lot of stuff on Instagram. Like someone I saw on LinkedIn, I think he was like a fashion blogger, was like posting, have I just walked into Tesco or Zara? Like she was totally like flabbergasted.
Hey, shout out to Tesco.
There's stuff in there, yeah. They do great jackets, right?
There's a guy that goes around rating all the cargo trousers from all like the retail stores. So he's got like Tesco cargos, M&S,
George
Sainsbury's.
And
he's like, I swear he said something about the Sainsbury's cargos being the best ones out there.
They've stepped their game up. Sainsbury's cargos, your daily shopping and cargos.
So, why fashion then? I know you said pop star and all this. I know you said you wanted to choose your own clothes, but a lot of people choose their own clothes under 13. What took you down the route of pursuing a fashion design career?
It's funny because I have this like little sort of, I think I always liked the idea of like working in the fashion industry, and I wanted to, I think I love the idea of being a fashion journalist because I loved magazines, I loved reading, and I loved kind of this glamorous lifestyle that it looked like it was going to be. And then I did A-level English and I was like, I'm not doing that.
Not writing.
Then like, I think it was kind of, I remember this actually little pinpoint moment, which is really obscure, but it really sticks out to me. Like, we're going back about 10 years, there was a girl on The Voice and she was called Leah McFall, and she came into her audition and she had this big like vintage coat on, and it had, thinking back, like it was hilarious. Like, I think because I just wanted to be this really sort of like quirky, like different. I was very sort of like, just loved anything that was like quite funky and quite fun. I still do now, but like I saw this, she had this coat on, it had seagulls all over it, and I don't know what it was, like it was so hideous, but I loved it. And it was just, I was really like fascinated by it. I remember thinking, I need this coat, but she probably got it from a vintage shop or somewhere, not the kind of thing you could just
like
go
a one of a kind item.
You couldn't just go and buy it on the high street. And I remember like going around loads of charity shops and everything, and I couldn't find what I wanted. So I think it was actually like my mum that said to me, like, why didn't you try and make one yourself? Because I think it was like, I think I'd just done my GCSEs, like I'd done textiles at GCSE, but it was like, and I liked it, but it was never kind of, it never stuck in my head like, oh, this is what I want.
So was it the factor that you wanted a piece of clothing that was hard to find? That sort of prestigious thing about it, obviously something that not everyone wears.
It wasn't, I guess, like, I mean, maybe there was this slightly sort of obnoxious part of 16-year-old me that was like, no, I want to be different, like, why don't I want to be like everybody else? But at the same time, I think the thing that's still with me now is I just love this idea of like I've loved this idea of creating stuff, and like also I guess like it's just seemed to naturally be in me that I wanted to like take something that was different and make it my own, also just have something of my own, and it just took off from there really. Like,
I think you need to have that creative side where you want to pick something up and make it different, make it your own to thrive in the fashion industry. I think if you just
you're starting from scratch, aren't you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like my grandma's a really avid sewer, and so she kind of she's literally like for every like thing that she ever did, like was handmade. No, she's amazing. She like everything that she ever did was handmade. It was knitted. Like, I mean, you'll know. Like for context, me and Leah were cousins, so we have the same grandma. And so everything that she did was always made. And I guess because I grew up with that around me as well. I kind of said to her, well, actually, I want to make this, but I don't know where to start. I remember I had something that I was like, I could just draw around that and I can make it into a jacket. Why not? And then she was like, no, you can't do that.
Bringing it down to the real world.
Yeah. So she kind of like took me to like a proper haberdashery. She like got me a pattern and like picked out fabric and stuff. And it was absolutely hilarious. I remember the first thing that I ever made, it had coffee cups and milk jugs all over it. Every single button was a different one.
What was it?
Like, it was this big like oversized jacket that was kind of like the same shape that I'd seen on
on The Voice.
I'd seen on The Voice, because I remember like thinking, well, if I can't have that one, I'll just do my own thing. But and it just kind of took off. So
you went from seagulls to coffee cups?
Yeah, seagulls, coffee cups, milk jugs,
anything abstract.
Then it went to tart, and it was like paisley, like anything that was different. Like I remember kind of like this, liking this idea of like, oh, I've got something on that I've made. Yeah. So that was always that was kind of what kicked it off really. And then I remember kind of thinking like, oh, actually, I do quite like this, so maybe I'll pick this A level, and I'll just. But then I think I was also like, you know, when you're like 15, 16, I don't think anyone really knows what to do, and I think everyone's kind of.
We're all guessing.
Yeah, I know. For me, I kind of really struggled at school to study. Like I couldn't concentrate. I mean, I've got high functioning autism and. Also fairly sure I've got ADHD. That's a whole story. But I just couldn't like focus. I couldn't like sit down and concentrate. Like I got bang average GCSEs, and I think like I was always like, well, I don't really know what I want to do. I was very much in this kind of. I've always had quite a fantastical brain, I think. So I was kind of always just in this kind of in my own world and sort of like, well, what will be will be. So I just kind of picked.
Followed your passion.
Well, I guess so, but I think like at the time I wasn't even really thinking this is what I was going to do. Like I just kind of was like, well, I like that, and that. I'll do them for my A levels, and then
when was it that you realised fashion design was actually a job? Like it was actually something that
more than just a passion.
Yeah, more than just a passion.
More than copying someone on The Voice.
When was it really that you thought, oh, actually, I there is such a thing as doing this in the real world. I could do this.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't really remember. I think, like, I remember having some kind of book that was like, someone had bought me a book for Christmas or something that was about, like, working in the fashion industry and, like, different careers. And I remember kind of reading it and it was kind of saying, like, well, actually, like, it's not as simple as you think it is. There's a lot of different things that you can do.
Yeah.
And also there's a lot of different levels because I think, like, everyone kind of, I know for me going into like studying fashion, I was kind of thinking, well, maybe I'll be like Alexander McQueen. Maybe I'll make it. But then I think then you realise
Vivienne Westwood.
Well, yeah, and was she
your biggest inspiration?
I was obsessed with her, like obsessed. Like I was quite upset when she died. Actually,
recently.
Yeah. And I was. It really resonated with me because I was thinking like, she was one of the reasons why
I started
it, and
giving me goosebumps. That. One question I had actually was, you talk about making these out there kind of one of a kind pieces of fashion that stand out and kind of you wouldn't find in the high street. There'd be a sense that if I wore something like that, or if the average Joe wore something like that, they'd feel like all eyes are on me and a bit scared. Like I don't want to walk down the street wearing something that people might go, why are they wearing that? Was there any kind of sense of, I'm making this crazy piece that I think is really fun and cool and funky, but if I put it on and go down the street, normal people might be like, why the hell's he wearing that?
I mean, I guess I probably did think like that, but then I remember having this kind of overwhelming sense of like, I actually don't care. Like,
I think that's so liberating.
And it's funny actually, because I feel like as I've got older, I'm more conscious of it. I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. It's really strange, but I think I was lucky that I grew up in a house where I was always allowed to be myself and I was allowed to play with what I wanted to and like what I wanted to.
Yeah.
I always had lots of freedom to kind of explore things and experiment. And like, so I guess like for me, like, my mum and my dad never discouraged me from doing anything like that. So I'm really lucky in that sense. And I think it's helped. I think it's shaped a lot of my identity, really. Like a lot of obviously, you know, everyone grows up and they mature and they change. Like, and I wouldn't wear what I used to wear when I was 17.
I don't think any of us would. yeah. Remember them?
Some of the pictures, mate.
Remember them like low button, like V-neck shirts? Like,
with a different colour.
The yellow, pink and
they were like the classic with like the chino shorts.
The yellow one with the pink
and it had like a different coloured sleeve.
Oh, it was like the top man carrot fit jean era.
Yeah,
you're a fashion designer. Bring it back.
No, please don't.
Well, never say never.
It was like the in-betweeners movie.
It's terrible.
Shocking.
No, it's very much that era, and it really makes me laugh because that's the thing about fashion that I quite like as well, is that like you look back at what you used to wear and kind of think, what were we all thinking?
I always think that.
And then it comes back round.
Yeah.
Like I watched Bendit like Beckham a couple of years.
Oh,
I think
terrible. So some of the things that are said in that are just awful.
Well, yeah, and what they used to wear as well is there's that scene where they go out clubbing and young Keira Knightley walks out in this like ridiculous like bandana crop top, and her jeans are literally like low enough. Like if they went any lower, you'd be like, oh wow. And I remember watching that when I was at uni for the first time in years and thinking, oh, I'm so glad the high waist came back into fashion. But now it's gone the other way, and everyone's getting low waist.
How would you say? Because I'd say a lot of the fashion industry, from my perspective, is a lot of like it's all influence really. Like we'd say I'd never wore what I wore whenever it was like straight leg jeans. Yeah. But then now everyone's not wearing skinny jeans and they're wearing straight leg jeans. So how would you say like? How do you think influence comes about? Like how's it dictated? Like who decides what's coming in and when? Because obviously it's always changing. But
it's really interesting this, because I think like the way that we sort of, and all of our, since the rise of social media, all of our influences in pretty much everything have just completely shifted. And I think like Instagram tells so much about what humans are like now and like how we live our lives. It influences people so much. Like Instagram's a massive marketing tool for like so many fashion brands. And I think like that, I think like say like if you were in it like 25, 30 years ago, everything that you looked at would be off a catwalk. And we still do that now, but then I think like also like one of the biggest influences is social media, and sort of someone with a big following. Like for example, like Kim Kardashian, like
whatever she wears, everyone else wears.
She'll post one thing and everyone will go mad for it, and that's why, you know, her brand Skims is so big.
It's like it's almost a cheat code for them. It's like they've built their following, and then no matter what she produces, it's like if she wears it, I want to wear it. Like it's just
they are crazy. Fascinating. Like they're the most incredible marketers.
Well, Molly May's the English version of that, isn't she?
So very much.
What's your opinion on like designer brands that bring out like a specific item, like it might be a hoodie or a pair of trousers, that then other maybe high street brands will then copy? So you'll see the same thing in Zara without the branding, same thing in H&M, same thing in Top. Like, do you think that's a good thing for fashion, or do you think that just kind of waters down like these high fashion
brands? Going in the same direction.
It's kind of always how it's been. Like I think it's always started off where, you know, I mean, everyone would love to be dripping head to toe in like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and Prada, but you know that's not possible for the vast majority of people. So I think what has always been the goal is to kind of like, you know, make people feel good about themselves and make people feel happy, because it blows my mind like when I walk into Zara in Manchester on a Saturday afternoon, seeing how many people are in there.
It's crazy.
It always does. It's such a massive thing for people. I think clothing says so much about people's identity.
I think
and how they feel.
Zara have it bang on. I think because they're kind of like an in between. I think. I think their prices are not so cheap that people are like, oh, I don't want to
that's
that
Primark.
But it's like it's in the middle, I feel. I mean, I shop there because I like it.
Shouting himself out.
What's your go-to designer brand, and what's a designer brand that you wouldn't touch?
Oh wow!
Top range, top of the market.
Your Selfridges.
Favorite designer brands like Amiri, absolutely obsessed with. I really do like Louis Vuitton. I think that like, I mean, they've been there for absolutely forever, but I do really like Louis Vuitton. Like Vivienne Westwood, I've just always been obsessed with, as I said earlier. And there's quite a lot of smaller ones as well that I think a lot of people wouldn't have heard of. That's what I really enjoy, is actually like quite a lot of my job, luckily, is actually scrolling catwalks and looking at what's coming out.
Yeah, like up and coming things.
You say smaller ones. Are those smaller sort of fashion companies still able to make loads of money? No. So
it's a tough one, I think, because I think like really it's
so competitive.
It is, and it's about following, and it's about influence. It's about sort of like putting out something different, I think, and like it's such like an oversaturated.
If you had the financial backing, would you ever consider starting your own company, or do you think it's not worth the hassle for all these like competitors?
I don't like. I think it would the option would definitely be there, but I think as well, like what I quite like is kind of looking at what people are wearing and collaboratively working together with people.
Yeah, working in a team.
Kind of, definitely.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you could do that in your own brand,
trends,
but as you start your own brand, it's either you coming up with the idea, doing all the work behind it, having a basis.
Yeah.
I think working as a team. Some people, I guess, don't have that ambition to start their own business, but go high within a business.
Yeah.
And by the sounds of it, it sounds like
I think fashion.
You enjoy working as part of a team.
Yeah, 100%.
And the end team goal is what you're after.
I think fashion is such a tough one at the moment because you've got brands like Represent and Cole Buxton that are kind of doing similar things with like oversized hoodies and kind of cargo pants and like quite basic colours, but they've got the whole world wearing their clothes.
It's their marketing again, though. Isn't it?
Yeah, and I just think
image behind
how have they managed to still sell their jumpers at the prices of like 150 quid, which is lower than the kind of big designer brands like Balenciaga. You'll see £600-700 for their hoodies, and then still manage to do so well. Like, and people are still going, oh, I'm not going to get a Zara hoodie that's 60 quid. I'm going to spend 150 quid, get the Cole Buxton one for that label, even though it's pretty much the same thing. And it's just got, I don't know how those brands do it. Could you give us an insight into how you think they're successful over like other small brands trying to do the same thing?
I think it's just kind of about sort of like having a signature and like kind of just be, and kind of, I guess, just staying true to knowing who your customer base is, really sort of like nailing in on that, and just kind of, and I think marketing's a big point. Like, I think it takes a lot really to, like, to own any sort of like company. I think like the idea of entrepreneurship, I think personally scares me a little bit because it's so much. I think like, you know, you see a lot of success stories on Instagram, but then when you kind of think about
the amount of failures,
twice as many, if not 10 times as many failures.
Yeah. I think one company that did really well with it, obviously you know a lot more about it than I do, but Represent. Like, in my opinion, Represent has just come out of absolutely nowhere. I never heard of it. But then the next thing I knew, it was like this massive
Instagram thing. Honestly, I just saw other people wearing it. I'd say I probably knew about it just before everyone else.
You've got to say that.
Because I did.
Hasn't it only just reached, it's now reached the American market?
Now you see
like
NBA
players
wearing it, and like, it's just like Mike Malak, he wears it. And it was like, when I saw it, I was like, hang on a minute, like, I know that. But I feel like they've just, I don't know why, but they've just created such a print that everyone's obsessed with. And
the fit of the clothing as well.
Yeah, they just, I don't know, they've just smashed it.
Oversized and massive things these days.
Yeah, I think like things like, for men particularly, men buy into brands and men love brands.
That's what
and
when
you see your friends wearing a brand, like from what I've seen from experience, they then want that. They want that brand as well.
I always noticed that in school that the lads would always be wearing branded shoes, branded t-shirts, branded hoodies. The girls would just be wearing Primark kind of plain.
Still the same now.
Like, and they can go out and buy like a pair of shoes to go on a night out.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was sat in the corner with my F&F.
My mum refused to buy my clothes from 13.
And my Dunlop school bag.
Everyone had a Dunlop school bag.
No, but I think there's more pressure as lads to wear like branded shoes, especially. Whereas for women, it's more like, unless you're kind of seen as a high class kind of friend group, they choose. No, but like certain people were like, oh, I'm not wearing that unless it's designer.
You mean, like if you're going out as a woman in a dress, you're not having a brand on it. It's not like a brand. It's just
it's like Pretty Little Thing.
It's just a coloured dress.
Yeah.
Whereas
lads, it's all like Balenciaga.
To get into some clubs, you need to be wearing.
I feel like for them,
I'm
saying this from my opinion, but I feel like the difference is, it's not necessarily true, but I feel like when we buy clothes, it's normally a lot more for longevity, whereas some girls will wear something
fast fashion, mate,
to wear it again because they
that's a good topic.
One picture in that dress, and they'll be refused to be seen it again. So I feel like you spend more on a hoodie because you know you'll wear that hoodie 500 times. They won't wear the same top because their friend last week saw them wearing it in the club. And it's like, why? Like, no one cares what you're wearing. Just wear it.
Is that why there's such a large range of women's clothing? Because whenever I go into a shop these days and it's a unisex shop, it's
Zara.
Yeah,
three floors right at the top. And the men's is like, oh, cheers.
It's so interesting. It is, and I think like traditionally, fashion was always about women.
Yeah.
It's always about women's wear. And like, I think like, you know, especially if you kind of look back at sort of history, a lot of men's wear was always just suits.
Yeah.
And kind of like your tailor.
Oh yeah,
like,
it was.
Yeah.
you know, before sort of like back in, I'm trying to think of like a point where it probably changed, but I guess like historically before maybe like the 1950s, all men wore suits.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, it was like Sunday best, but every day. And, you know, you'd still put your suit on a Sunday.
That'd be so sick if everyone still did that.
Imagine all of
Yeah.
Should we start it?
Do you know what? I absolutely
For
love
the
seeing an old
podcast.
boy walking through town and just
It's just
Yeah.
it's
Full
so
suit.
normal to them. Like,
Why do you think workwear kind of gear for a guy is now coming back into fashion?
Oh, like, I think trends always come back round.
Yeah.
And I guess like, you know,
Like,
the 90s
like
was
Carhartt
quite
and,
it.
places,
Yeah.
and companies like that. Obviously, it's been a massive company for a long time, but it's sole
So-
basis
It's
is
like workwear.
workwear, isn't
Yeah.
it? And that's where it's come from.
Yeah, the 90s I think was quite like an influential decade in terms of that, and everyone was kind of, I think people kind of probably look back on it as this idea of like lots of bliss and like everyone was just out raving and having fun.
Yeah.
Like the Cold War had just ended.
Yeah.
The world isn't going to end for now, and we're just going to go out and have fun.
Yeah.
And I think like that.
That's quality.
A lot of people kind of I think back at that time and think, oh yeah, that's a time that we want to look back to and we want to aspire to. And you know, like everyone gets nostalgic. Everyone loves watching old films.
Yeah.
And everyone's probably like, you know, seen lots of like teen movies from the early 2000s and been like, well, we can wear like low rise cargos and crop tops again. Why not? So
It's so.
everything comes back around again.
Yeah, I know we were talking about how there's loads more options for women, and that's kind of encouraged this fast fashion business where you wear something once, never wear it again. Obviously, there's all these brands coming out like we need to be sustainable. Big companies like Vinted and Depop have been pressing for kind of second-hand clothes and being sustainable. Yeah. What's your opinions as a fashion designer? Because obviously, this is how fashion brands make their money, is through the fast fashion. Is it the best way to go in terms of forward is fast fashion, or should we be kind of more sustainable, looking at reused clothes and that kind of thing?
It's a really difficult question because I think obviously naturally as a designer I'm always thinking of newness and like, and what's new, and I guess that for me that'll kind of always just be in me. I think in terms of fast fashion it's just become unprecedented, like how many clothes we buy now. I think it's very different now. I think I know, like speaking to like older family members, like back in when they were young, you'd save up to buy you'd save up to buy something that you really liked and you would wear it again and again. And I think obviously because fashion on the whole is much more accessible to
it's a lot cheaper now.
Yeah, and I guess that's what's made it more accessible. And like, you know, the fashion industry is probably like I think it's the second or third biggest industry in the world. Like it employs so many people, and I think so I guess in that sense it is good.
Does that include like sweatshops and stuff?
Well, unfortunately, yes. So I guess it's like, and there's also a lot of conversation around that now. I think like with the rise of secondhand platforms, I've seen like a lot of secondhand. I mean, I've seen a lot of fast fashion companies now actually adopting into like a second-hand marketplace, because like, you know, things like Depop and Vinted are taking a lot of that away from them.
What happens? Obviously, there's so many items of clothing out there, billions and billions and billions of clothes, and people get rid of them and chuck them. And so, what? Like, people don't just. I don't just put like a shirt in the bin. Like, I'd take it to somewhere to get rid of it,
like a charity shop.
Yeah, but
or
you know,
like a recycle,
you know, clothes that are just like battered,
like a recycle.
There's so many. Like what actually happens to
so they
clothes?
get reused?
Do you know what happens to clothes when they got rid of?
No, it's in like they reuse the fabric.
Well, they go to landfill.
They go to landfill.
Yeah,
right.
And then I guess that's
there's so many of them.
Oh yeah,
it must take up so much space.
When you kind of see like less developed countries as well, a lot of them end up with
a lot of the landfill
away, and that's a really big sort of. That's a really telling thing about how much we do consume. I think it's not just the fashion industry either. It's the same with the food industry.
I feel like it's just it's culture in general, isn't it?
Technology.
We're just such a consumer culture.
100%.
So I feel like
we get a new iPhone every year.
You can blame the fashion industry, but at the same time, it's like
it's everyone.
If the only way it would change is if every single fashion brand collectively agreed that they were going to change.
Only going to make certain
otherwise, someone else is just going to profit off of you not doing it because they know. Literally. The opportunities that are there from it. And again, it's like you as a person can equally, like, if you don't want to contribute, you can say no, but
someone else
because of your
yes.
culture, like, again, it's like you say, you buy a new iPhone every year. Once you've got a car, it's like people get this feeling of needing something, and then it's always on to the next, on to the next, on to
Yeah.
the next. Like nothing's ever enough. Like it's always got to be. I'm missing this. I don't have this item.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think as humans, we probably naturally we like new things as well, and we're always kind of looking at, maybe it's just kind of the way that society is, or maybe it is just in human
I feel like it releases serotonin, doesn't it, when you buy something new?
Oh yeah, like buying a new thing, like it makes you feel amazing.
It's like an actual therapy. Some people call it resale therapy, don't they?
Yeah,
for a reason.
100%. Like, you know, I know like when I buy something new, I always feel really
you feel good.
This has made me feel really good.
Until you check your bank account.
Do you think the reason why clothes come back in fashion is because there's only so much you can do with an item of clothing, whereas the new iPhone, every year you can add a new gadget onto it.
Yeah.
You can add a new feature, you can add a new selling point, which is why people go back and buy it, the new thing.
That's an interesting question.
With clothing, it's not like you can add like, I don't know, a fan that pops up and cools you down.
Probably could. No one would buy that.
But like, is that why it goes around in cycles, do you think?
Yeah, but do you know,
there's less sort of development. I mean, an item of clothing is an item of clothing.
Think about before, like Yeezy slippers, everyone would have laughed at them.
Yeah.
And now they're a thing, and people wear the speed like.
But again, marketing. Like if it wasn't for Kanye, there's no way.
Yeah, true.
Wear 'em.
Crocs is such a telling thing.
Yeah.
I'm really annoyed because I got slammed for wearing Crocs. Like my mum sent me to school in Crocs, and I didn't wear it for about 5 years. Like literally my whole secondary school experience was like Jacob wore Crocs in year 7. That was literally like, and now everyone's wearing them. So that to me, like,
everywhere.
really,
You go in the gym and people are wearing Crocs. It's mental.
So
I mean, Cal's got some Lightning McQueen ones.
Yeah. What does fashion design mean to you?
oh wow.
Oh, wow.
Look at that. I wasn't expecting
That was
that.
a transition.
Yeah.
I think for me, like it's just kind of it's become a lot of, I guess, about who I am, and like I guess I've always like I said, was always just obsessed with clothing, and I guess being able to kind of create that and I guess put my stamp on it and feel like I'm doing something and contributing to it. I guess that's what it means to me. It's always been I feel like it has become a big part of my identity.
Do you enjoy it? Like a lot of people go to work because they have to. Do you wake up in the morning and think, I actually love my job?
Oh yeah. Like, I don't like. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I think it's funny because you don't always. Nothing's ever how you expect it's going to be, and I think fashion it is a great industry in a lot of ways, and I think it's full of a lot of like creative young people. Everyone thrives off each other. Everyone bounces off each other, and that's something that I really look forward to going to work. Like I genuinely don't. I never get the Sunday scaries really. Like I always kind of think like, oh no, I'm going into work tomorrow.
Does your boss ever throw a spanner in the works? Let's say you and your work colleagues are really excited about this product that you want to show to your manager, and does the manager ever turn around and say, no, absolutely not?
Well, there's always, you always have to have some kind of direction.
Someone reviewing it.
I think, and it's the same when you're a student. Like you learn that quite early on. Like it's not always about you, and there's always going to be different opinions, and you kind of have to just not take things personally either. And I think that's a big sort of like learning curve as a designer or as a creative person. Like not everything is personal, and you kind of just have to. You kind of just have to ride it out really, and just kind of it just make you more conscious of like what you're doing, and makes you more conscious of the decisions that you make, and it definitely helps.
Just for an idea, out of I don't know 100 ideas, how many would make it to the next stage roughly? I mean, I bet it's completely different every time.
Yeah, it kind of it's hard to put like an exact amount on it really.
Yeah. I think what we'll do is we'll come on to kind of the ins and outs of the job in a bit. What I want to touch on first is what did you need or what did you do to get into the fashion design industry, to get your current job roles and the jobs you've had before? Do you think there's one certain path that you need to go down to get into fashion design, or do you think there's many different ways? And kind of tell us how the way you took and other ways that other people around you've taken.
Yeah, so I don't think I guess I did go down a conventional route in terms of that I went to uni and I studied for it, and I guess a lot of people, but I think when I was at school, like I didn't do a lot of art really. Like it was never something that was really on my radar. Like I think I'd done textiles and I was kind of like, oh, actually I quite like this, I could do it. But then I think it then became quite apparent to me that I needed that sort of like artistic background as well, because so much of, especially going on to a degree when you're studying, like so much of it is about creative ideas and development and just kind of pushing the boundaries and innovation. And I think kind of I researched into like lots of different degrees, and they were kind of like what you should really do is an art foundation year. And I wasn't really aware that it was a thing. I only knew that my mum had done one about 30 years previously, because she obviously was an art teacher.
Yeah.
But, so that was kind of, I was like, well, actually, maybe I should do this. Like, this would be quite a good thing. And then my mum, being an art teacher, put me through my paces. She literally gave me loads of like things to draw. Like, one night she'd be like, oh yeah, why don't you draw this shell?
Yeah.
And like, then I remember drawing the PG Tits monkey and like, bizarre things like that, just kind of stuff that was just like lying around the house and kind
just
of
to practice.
like, just kind of practicing it and building up like a bit of a portfolio, because I guess I didn't really have much of an art portfolio. I'd had like my textiles coursework, which was like sky high, and like, we'd sketch things. Obviously I made things, but looking back it was awful what I made. Like, I had no concept of like detail, and do you think you actually go into clothing?
Do you think your portfolio is more important than your uni degree in terms of getting a job?
Well, it goes hand in hand, because when you study, like,
you build
especially when you study fashion design, it's one of the big things that like you get told that is, I mean, you have modules in it, like you get trained in it, and it's a big thing everyone says to you, like, your portfolio is like it's your designed handwriting. It's like, it's basically your labour of love. And I'd recommend anyone wanting to get into it to just put your heart and soul into it, because that's what gets you the job. Ultimately.
What kind of things should they include in it? Is it just hand drawings or pieces of clothing they've made? What are the best things to put in it?
Well, I think like from when you go on to, when you do study it, like, you have sketchbooks, you kind of start from, I guess this is something that I never really realised was kind of apparent in fashion until I was kind of researching into what actually a fashion design degree is, and like what it entails. And I think it was, luckily, especially doing my art foundation, it was something I really fell in love with. I really fell in love with the artistic side of it, and really fell in love with like ideas and kind of like making a statement, and really sort of, it wasn't just about the clothing for me anymore. It was about creating things and actually sort of having this artistic outlook. It was something I really found I enjoyed. So going into a degree, you kind of then, you're encouraged to kind of explore that, especially when you're first starting out. So you kind of start off with the concepts, and you kind of take that through to design development, and make something up. And then normally when you're in final year, you make a full collection. So you then sort of take, your portfolio is everything from start to finish. So it's kind of your concept, your mood boards, it's where your imagery, where your ideas have come from. And then kind of like your design development process, so how you've kind of taken ideas, how you've like taken one thing and you've worked on an idea, and you've built it up, you've tried different things, and you've kind of got to a conclusion. I remember like someone saying to me actually when I was at uni, which was really helpful, you have to imagine your portfolio almost like a film. You wouldn't just watch the start, watch the end, and then that be it. Like,
you need the bit in the middle.
You have to show
your
development. You have to show the development. Like, you have to show how you've got there.
Could someone get your job without uni? Could, with a portfolio only, could someone get to your position?
I mean, I would highly recommend. I mean, it's funny because I think nowadays, because so many people go to uni, and I've heard a lot of like discourse in the media about sort of like, you know, do we actually all need to go to uni in the numbers that we do nowadays? But I would highly recommend studying it, because like university for me was like a formative experience, really, along with like my art foundation year. Everything, I guess, for
also
me,
a networking experience.
Oh, 100%. I always say, like, for me, life started when I left school after I'd done my A-levels. Like, art foundation year was like the best year of my life. I made friends that I still have now. Went to uni, I was suddenly immersed in this world that I really loved, and this kind of creative atmosphere, and I just really thrived off it. Like, I think what's special as well about studying fashion is that on a lot of university courses, you spend a few hours a day sat in a lecture theatre, and then you kind of leave, and you don't really mingle that much with your course mates or mix that much. And then for us, we were side by side 12 hours a day in the studio.
Well, I think it's cool because at school, obviously everyone is interested in different things, but when you go to uni brings all these people that are interested in similar things together.
Yes, definitely.
So I take it you met a lot of people with like-minded interests and hobbies and career visions. So
it was great, I think, and that's what I really loved as well, because I think I struggled to kind of, my school was quite academic, and they kind of didn't really sort of, there wasn't a lot of emphasis put on anything creative. It was kind of always about sort of like getting into, you know, a Russell Group uni or studying something that's kind of being a lawyer, being a doctor, like, you know, like doing something that's quite prestigious and that's going to obviously ultimately get you a job. I think a lot of people don't realise how big the fashion industry is and how many opportunities there were. So it was never something that was really pushed from that side.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got to uni, I was suddenly in this environment that I really thrived off with people that thought and understood the same way that I did.
Yeah.
Would you ever say there was any point where choosing the degree you did that you would ever be limited or like worried about the jobs you would be able to get? Because I feel like a lot of the arts industry, like a lot of people talk down on it, like what are you actually going to do with that? Like how is it actually going to help you? Like would you say there was a lot of opportunities that you had from your degree, or was it very narrow of like what you were going to go into?
Yeah, well, I think you always learn transferable skills. I think nothing's ever a waste of time, and I think I'm lucky that like my mum always said that to me. She was kind of like, whatever happens after your degree, like it's experience, it's life experience,
100%,
and you've learned something new. But I think for me, obviously you always have that. There is that opinion about the arts, and and a lot of people kind of always like, no, it's an impossible industry. You'll never make it. Like it's so difficult. It's so difficult to stand out.
It's a terrible mindset to have.
Well, like I guess like going into it, I kind of didn't listen to people, or I tried not to, because I was just always like, no, this is what I want to do. Like,
absolutely,
there was nothing else that I wanted to do. Like, especially thinking back, I wouldn't have done anything else.
That's such a strong mindset to have. So many people get scared by the thought of failure and the thought of, oh, if I go down this route, there's so many possibilities that it doesn't go well that I'm just going to not even try in the first place. And what's the point of living a life scared of failing when you haven't even tried to succeed?
To do it.
Well, I think I was definitely, like I say, I've always been sort of quite fantastical. I think I was probably like a little bit naive sometimes. I think you have to be.
Yeah, well, you do.
I guess that's that's the special part of like.
Is it naive or is it just confidence?
Well, I think for me, one thing that I really struggled with was this idea of like, actually there's a lot of creative people in the same place, and it really actually I've always been quite hard on myself, but it actually affected sort of my self-esteem quite a lot, because I was kind of thinking of actually that I'm surrounded by these amazingly talented people that have got these amazing ideas, and I just don't. And I guess also it is a competitive industry, and when I was at uni as well, it was made competitive. Like we had opportunities with we did live projects with brands, and we did lots of kind of external projects and big things where we were kind of all competing against each other. Like we'd have kind of like people come in from industry and you'd have to present.
Was there actual competitions?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We did. So when I was in second year, we did a live brief with River Island. So that was it was a group project, which was very challenging. But I guess that was really sort of getting us prepped what it's like being in industry.
Yeah. I think you need that though, otherwise you go into the real industry and you're thrown in the deep end.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You might not thrive as well as you would if you hadn't done it in uni.
Was there an incentive to win those competitions? Like, was there a jobs in the future, or experience to be gained?
So when I was in final year, we did a live brief with Paul Smith, and because we had to do these competitions, it was actually part of our grade that we had to do.
You get scored on it as well.
Two competitions. Yeah, it was. So you presented your work at the end of the degree, and you were marked on it. So it was actually part of something that you had to hand in. And I guess it was good because it really built our portfolio up as well. So we did a live brief with Paul Smith, and I struggled quite a lot at uni again with being quite hard on myself. And I remember just being so desperate to win something.
Yeah.
And I remember my mum's was always such a realist, and I remember she was kind of saying to me, look, you can't win everything. It's not all just about winning. It's about the experience. But I was so determined that I needed to win.
You know what? That's such a good mindset to have, though.
Yeah. And I don't know
to win whatever you want, you're going to put yourself in for, or want to win it. Is a really
and I think
mindset.
Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of rejection that came before that. There were a lot of things that I kind of set my mind I'm going to do that. It's going to happen. And it wouldn't happen, and I was kind of that was really, I guess, that was a really tough pill to swallow. And then when I was in my final year of uni, we did this competition with Paul Smith, and we kind of again did it like we normally would, come up with an idea, you design a range, you present it to people that came in from the brand, and I won. And I remember and that for me, that still sticks with me, because I remember thinking I could not believe it. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what's just happened?
It just shows, doesn't it?
I think,
they sponsored my collection, so I got fabrics from the warehouse.
Wow.
They gave me
that's so cool.
I did an internship there after I finished, and
I put that in the portfolio.
It was, don't worry. And that actually really helped me as well with what I then did after. And I think it's that, I guess it is competitive industry and it is tough. And I think, but also you have to just believe in yourself. That's the biggest piece.
I guess that whole story is a perfect example of why uni gives you such a heads up or such a leg up compared to other people who don't go to uni, because you get given these opportunities to participate in competitions and get those benefits of getting those placements afterwards.
To be able to just network and those opportunities.
That was going to be my next question. Is there anything else about it? But you've answered it perfectly.
Yeah, I'd say it's all about experience and it's all about networking, and that's what it kind of did perfectly. And so I would really recommend going to uni.
Can we move on to a bit more about your experiences since uni now? So I don't know if you're allowed to talk about the companies you've worked for previous, kind of what happened. You left uni and then what was your first role?
So I left uni and I did so it was kind of like a graduate internship program with H&M in Stockholm. So
big up Sweden.
Cool. So it was the best thing I ever did. Like, I couldn't recommend it enough. If anyone gets the opportunity to do something like that, do it, because it was like the life experience that you get and the professional experience is it's next to none.
I feel like, and the working conditions in Sweden just feel like they're better than anywhere else in the world.
Scandinavians have got it sorted. sorted.
Do you like finish work early on a Friday morning or something?
Was it during COVID?
It was just before.
Okay.
Yeah, so I graduated.
They kept everything open in Sweden as well, didn't they?
Yeah, so I graduated 2019. So I went out and I applied when I was still at uni for the internship. So just kind of submitted a portfolio that we had to. It was quite a long process. I think we had like an interview that was just over the phone to start with, then had to go to London for an interview where I actually met one of my best friends, Meg. So
Shout out, Meg.
If you're watching. we always say this, like, it was just fate that we were going to be friends, because we met on that day. We both got the internship. We both ended up in Sweden. And
that's so cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And then they actually flew us out to Stockholm for the last round of the interview. So that was really exciting. And I remember actually, I think I was just at work or something. It was like a Monday morning, and I got this email saying we want to offer it to you, and I was like on my own in this room. I was like,
you did a little scream.
I can't even remember what I remember just being like so gobsmacked. I remember like thinking like, I can't work. I don't think I did any work that day. I literally just ran home and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to Sweden. Like, and
that's so cool.
It was the best thing I ever did.
And what were you doing like day to day? So what were H&M like making you do?
So I was just really getting to grips with actually what it's like being on a design team. You really kind of get a feel for what it's actually like. You see kind of what the designers do. You kind of, and I was supporting them directly. So kind of anything kind of that they would need a hand with, whether it was just presenting things, getting, mood boards together, kind of like amending things to send out to factories. That was kind of my job role. And it was kind of very much like a really great stepping stone, actually getting to grips with how the industry works. And there's so much that you learn on the job as well that you don't learn at uni. So I think that's really invaluable.
How much creative freedom do they give you in these companies? Like, I know they might say, oh, we want a few new hoodies. Do they say they need to be this colour, they need to be this style, or do they just give you free reign?
Yeah, well, normally kind of you'll have a brief, and you'll kind of, obviously everything that you do sort of when you work in industry is kind of, you're thinking about who's going to wear it ultimately at the end. So everything we'll kind of look at trends, we'll kind of look at what typically that person wearing it will like, and you just kind of really, and you kind of piece this kind of customer profile together in your head. But I guess that I think I'm lucky now in like where I work now is a very sort of like young creative streetwear brand, so it is very much kind of.
Do you follow guidelines? Do you have guidelines you need to follow, or does the creative aspect take over and you just do what you want?
I think like quite often, like, if we have an idea, you're very encouraged to kind of just take it forward and just say, well, actually, I really believe in this. But then often as well, we'll kind of say, what we need, like this amount of so-and-so, this amount of so-and-so. And then
so there's a quota. There's quotas. So they say we need this many product ideas in this amount of time.
Yeah, that's quite common in industry. I think you'll very much get given a brief by a buyer who will kind of say, this is what we need to do. Like, this is what's selling well. This is what trends we've seen.
So interesting.
Through. Right. So they'll kind of say, right, we need this amount.
So who's that says that?
The buyer.
So that's the buyer. So there's, we could do a whole podcast on it.
Come back.
So basically kind of like the fashion buyer kind of like they sort of like, they're very much kind of help build the ranges alongside the designer.
Are they employed by the company?
Yeah. So they'll kind of like, they'll negotiate sort of like everything, they'll kind of source fabrics, they'll kind of go sort of like looking at sort of how we can make things different, and they'll kind of very much kind of look at what's sold well, and what sort of we you know, what the customer likes, and then they kind of feed that back to the design team, and then kind of say, right, so this is what we need to design, and then
do they have the final say in the product then if they're the ones buying it?
Quite often, yeah, because they're the ones that will like sign things off and say, right, we want this. They build the range. We get to give the ideas. They build the range.
And how long after you've made a product and finalised it, do you actually see it on the shop front or hung up in the store?
It depends. Like, it depends kind of what kind of product it is. Because some take longer to be made than others.
Yeah.
And then quite often, like, it's normally, I'd say normally like 6 months or so, but I guess it depends.
So you're
every brand is different.
So you're kind of predicting what the fashion's going to be like in 6 months' time.
Well, like every catwalk show that you look at is always a season ahead. So at the moment, like,
that's true.
London, Paris, New York, it's all autumn, winter. Like, so you're kind of looking at what's going to be in autumn, winter.
That's mad. I never thought of it like that.
So spring, summer was done and dusted, boxed off ages ago. We're not even in it yet, but
that's crazy. What, so are you designing stuff for winter now then?
Yeah.
That's mad. And even going into summer, that's crazy.
Yeah. Right.
I feel like you need the inspiration of the weather when you look outside. Yeah, it's like it's sunny. Oh, let's get a nice puffer jacket on. That is so weird. I didn't realize it worked like that. And then now you've moved from Stockholm to Manchester. You've been working for a few different companies in Manchester now. What's like a typical day like for you? Do you have like meetings, or if you go in at say 8, 9 o'clock, whenever you go in, what does the first few hours look like for you?
Yeah, so not every day is every day is different, which is one of the best bits about it. Like, not every day will be the same. Like, I think a lot of sort of my role actually like is the admin side, because that sort of my role is to support the design team. So I kind of will sort of I'll sort of log new developments, chase for new developments that we've sent out to factories, and sort of make sure that all of our range plans are nice and up to date, and the technical sketches and tech packs are all sort of updated, ready to be sent out, or and just kind of general just things that help. And we've got a whole library of fabric books that I like to organise.
How often do you have to sit down and have the kind of boring meetings and stuff that most people would say, oh, this is the worst bit of the job?
To be fair, I don't mind meetings. Like,
really?
Meetings, like, you know, we'll have creative meetings where you'll bring new ideas.
I guess it's different, isn't it?
So we'll bring inspiration that we've seen and kind of think and kind of piece things together. Like, sometimes we'll go out shopping to vintage shops and look at kind of ideas for graphics and
so cool.
And things like that, just to kind of see and just kind of seeing what people are wearing as well. I like to kind of go through Instagram and look at street style from these events, like
is there ever
Fashion Week and influencers.
Is there ever like a kind of innate fear that the idea that you kind of spring up in those meetings is going to be laughed at?
I mean, I think you have to. It's difficult because you have to back your ideas, but you also, like, I think you have to trust that actually you know what you're doing, and also that you've got a team of people that believe in you and will back it as well. So I think, like, you have to just again, like, it's the same all the way through. You have to just believe in yourself. And just be confident.
Do they ever take risks, these companies, with an item of clothing? Do they think this could absolutely like
spin
crumble,
the market,
just fail?
But if it works,
it's going to be the best thing ever.
It could be the best thing ever. Do these companies ever take these risks? Or
I know, for example, like working for a company like H&M, which was a lot bigger, you have kind of like specific departments where they kind of focus more on the trend side of things. They will take risks, and they will actually do. H&M have got a whole range called the Studio Collection, which is the bigger, bolder, more risky stuff, and it's kind of what you're very sort of like cool kind of customer wears. And so I guess there are risks to be taken, and I think one thing I would say as well, that even in industry you have to be creative, and you always
definitely
you have to be looking for new ideas. It's all part of it.
What is the worst bit of the job being a fashion designer? So there's all these cool creative things. What's the worst bit?
One thing I would say is that the late nights don't stop at uni. Like, and they kind of, I think studying fashion, I'm sure like a lot of people will be aware of it if you have studied fashion. It is very long hours. Like it can be very intense, and it's not glamorous, and that's a big misconception actually, that fashion is not glamorous, and I really can't stress that enough. Like, you'll be working very long hours. Like, sometimes you might be told that that your work is really rubbish, like you could be made to redo things. Like,
Yeah.
I had a tutor at uni once that actually we were in a tutorial and he was trying on something that a girl in my tutor group had made, and he actually stood up and said, I'm just going to be honest with you, it looks fucking awful.
Really? Flipping
and it's that kind of like, it was that kind of environment that kind of made me think kind of this is
Where
actually
is she now?
what it
Working
is.
at Mackey's?
No, she's very talented. She's working in the industry alongside.
But the thing is, it's because it's so subjective with fashion and it's all opinions, and you might think it's the best thing since sliced bread. Someone else might think I've never ever been seen
especially now
in daylight wearing that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like there's a lot of people don't mind not fitting in now, whereas I feel like before, like if anything, everyone just wanted to like, you didn't want to look different. Everyone wanted to look the same. But
I guess like I guess that's probably like it is long hours and it can be very intense. But the hard work and the graft, I think, for me, it's worth it if you see somebody walking down the street, like, wearing something that you've worked
that'd be
on,
so
like,
cool.
That's, I think that makes it.
Like, Mum, look, I made that. Go to him, mate. This is one of my pieces. That'd be so cool. Maybe that'll happen soon once they start releasing your stuff.
Would you wear your own designs?
I mean, when I was at uni, it's funny actually because I always used to make my own clothes, or I did when I was younger, when I was first starting out, and then when I got to uni I realised that I was actually much more into the actual design side of it, so and kind of doing so much sewing and in such an intense way. I found it really stressful. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I used to, and I got into a mindset as well where I was actually thinking, no, I don't like designing myself anymore because I kind of want to do something, see it, and then for me I like just seeing it and seeing it come to life. I don't need to wear it. I guess that's something that definitely like changed throughout my journey. So
that's cool.
Maybe one day. Who knows?
And are there any funny stories or anything you could tell us that people would be like, wow, like, I didn't know that happens in fashion, or anything that's just like a secret of the trade maybe, or things you don't know that goes on behind the scenes?
Well, I mean, a lot of secrets, unfortunately, I can't.
I'm
trying to think of like a funny story. Like I think, well, actually, one thing I would say, the industry is very small.
Yeah.
It's a lot smaller than you think it is, and everybody knows everyone. Like, funny story, I matched with someone on Hinge recently who also works in the industry. Turns out he knows the girl I live with. She also works in the industry. Really? He knows people that she used to work with because he now works with them.
Oh no.
He knows people I went to uni with. He's worked with people I went to Stockholm with.
There's no secrets for you.
No.
Wow. So is that a good thing or is it a red flag?
I think. Well, I think like I do. Yeah, I think like personally from a perspective, maybe.
You know, it's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But then it is very sort of much like the first impressions you make are vital and can take you far, especially when working in it. And I think, it is. Everyone knows everyone, and everyone's got each other's back as well.
Yeah,
so that's one thing
I like that.
Nice.
I think that sounds like a good industry to work in.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some of the more deep questions. I'll let Eddie use a special bowl, and we'll give it. You can pick out a question.
Be a deep question. That's the thing.
Oh well,
do I get to actually pick?
Yeah, to be fair,
I know about two of them. I actually don't know.
Just choose them.
I've honestly forgotten what's in here. So
I've got no idea.
So if you can open up and read it out for us, and then see if you can answer it the best you can.
I'm not answering that.
Do you have a 5-year plan?
Oh, I like that question.
That is quite deep. I mean, I always did have a 5-year plan, and then COVID happened. So like, I think like, that kind of really distilled in my brain because I was obviously working in Sweden, then came back at the start of. Oh, thank you. Came back at the start of that, and suddenly that was a really tough pill to swallow because I was kind of like, oh my god, like what am I doing now? Like, it was a really tough time to try and find a job in the industry, and that was, I guess, kind of forced me to like really think of like, you can't have everything planned out.
Yeah.
I think in my head, I do like to have a 5-year plan that I do want to kind of make it to designer level, and I do want to kind of be managing a team of people because I really like working collaboratively with people. I really like bouncing ideas off each other. Like I really thrive off that, and kind of seeing like people's ideas as well. I really like sort of seeing someone come up with something that you've not necessarily come up with, and I guess that's the great thing about being in a team, that you do collaborate and bring those ideas.
That sounds like a good plan.
5 years a realistic time frame for that role that you're wanting to achieve? Like what's progression like in the fashion industry? Is it once you're in, you kind of go up quickly, or is it a bit of a slower process? I
mean, I think it depends. I guess it depends kind of what you're doing, and it depends kind of
who you
what
work
sector
for,
of the industry you work in. I think like one thing I would say is that like you can move up the ladder fairly quickly, and there are lots of things that you can branch into. Like there's so many like jobs in fashion that I had no idea existed. Like you could be an influencer manager, like things like e-commerce.
What was Molly May? She was like creative director or something.
They created one for her.
Yeah, that didn't used to be a job, surely.
Well, things like I think things like being like social media, like you can do jobs in TikTok now.
Yeah.
TikTok's such a massive like marketing tool for so many brands and
literally
so many people. There's specific jobs in it now. Like it's something you can actually train in. Like I think you can do a degree in social media management. Like it
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Honestly, the amount of
it's the way the world's going.
Is like such a big opportunity to like get yourself into.
Well, everything's moving online. Like, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Like,
so
crazy.
Moving on from that question, kind of keeping it on a similar topic, what does success look like for you?
Success for me is feeling sort of happy and feeling content with what I'm doing, and just kind of being at a stage where I feel like, I think I probably would have given you a different answer 5 years ago.
I think we all would.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
I think, especially kind of as you grow up and you kind of realise more about yourself and about the world.
Yeah.
But I think now I just feel like, success for me is just kind of being happy and just being content and just feeling like, I am doing a good job and I'm happy with where I am.
Is there
what I'm doing.
Is there any aspect of that requires financial kind of backing for you to be happy? So living somewhere comfortably and not worrying about bills and that kind of thing.
Well, I guess ideally for everybody that's what they want.
Yeah, I mean,
the world that we live in at the moment is crazy. There's a cost of living crisis for a lot of people. That's not for a lot of people. Sadly that's not possible. And for me, like I've got a flat with my friend that I live in, and I can pay my bills every month. So for me, that's enough for now. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need everything. I think that's so true. There's this kind of persona that you're not happy until you've got everything that you ever want. But like you say, what you want changes every year, let alone every 5 years.
Definitely. And I saw a quote the other day actually that really resonated with me, and it was saying like a successful career at the expense of your mental health and well-being is not a successful career.
That's a mic drop.
That really resonates with me. I think as long as I'm sort of feeling happy and good about what I'm doing.
This is kind of why we started the podcast, for those kind of answers, and working out is success the same for everyone, or is there a different version of success for individuals? And for you it seems like happiness and kind of making sure that you're waking up every day, going to work and being content with what you're doing is success. Doesn't matter how much money you're making or what car you're driving to get to work. You could walk there and still be the happiest person in the world.
Yeah, definitely. And it depends like what your priorities are as well. Like if you do want to make a lot of money, that's fine. There are job careers that you can have that will make a lot of money. I guess it depends what you really want to do. I guess like I've always had this thing of like I want to feel happy, and my parents always said that to me as well. Just like, do what makes you happy. So.
Yeah, and
well, there was that thing going around on TikTok the other day. I think it was Gary V. He said he's got loads of friends who are multi-millionaires, and he's got loads of friends who earn 30, 35, 40k a year, and he says that
they're the happiest.
His friends that earn 30, 35, 40k a year are the happiest people he knows. They go home from work, they stick their feet up, they watch their favourite Netflix show, they spend time with their kids. Yeah. Like, for them, what more do you want? But on the other side, you've got the people who are obviously earning multi-millions, but they don't stop. They're always grinding, and they never have that time to maybe enjoy themselves the way.
Or even when they do, there's no one with them to spend the money with. Yeah. They're like, let's go to this restaurant. It's 10 grand for a steak. Who's going to go with you, mate?
No, I like that happiness. A lot of people, when you ask them what success is, it's always like when I've bought this or when I've earned, when I'm on this salary. But I feel like life would be a lot simpler for a lot of people if happiness was at the forefront of their goals.
And I feel like as like a generational thing, I don't know if it's previous generations and our generation as well, but I feel like there's a stigma around being the one that provides for the family and making sure you've got enough money. I think especially in straight relationships, the male might feel some sort of
duty to do it.
Yeah, and if they're earning less than their wife, they feel in some way less of a person, even though it doesn't really matter if you're happy. You're happy.
Status as well. Like everyone's always fighting for like importance and status, and I feel like money to most people is always that's where their importance comes from. So they feel like without the money. It's
Yeah.
like, I feel like to a lot of people, it's who am I if I don't
Yeah.
have the money to like represent
Yeah.
myself?
Yeah.
But
And then going on from that, does what you do for work define you as a person?
Oh, wow.
Because you did earlier that you are kind of a fashion designer and that's you now.
Yeah, I guess it kind of does. Like, I think for me, yeah, it is a big part of my identity. I think maybe I've just made it like that so much. Like maybe I've just kind of made it like a thing of like, this needs to be who I am. And,
Yeah.
And I've always quite liked that idea. I think I've always kind of liked this idea of like, I've always enjoyed clothes. I've always cared a lot about what I wear. And I guess for me, that just feeds into it. Like I just enjoy ideas.
It just goes, the idea is, it's when someone says or asks you, what do you do? It's always your job. It's what is it? It's to have that status.
Yeah.
But that's not what you do. Like obviously that spends that fills up a lot of time in your life, but
doesn't mean that's all you are.
Do? Yeah. So would you be happy with fashion designer being written on your gravestone?
Yeah, I think I probably would. Like,
I think that's the goal, isn't it?
yeah.
And I mean, yeah, like I think, and you know, like everyone wants kind of that sort of dream, big hierarchical sort of position, and everyone. I think a lot of people, especially when you're younger, I think you know, when you were at school, like it's one of the first things you ask, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's always like you're always thinking that like you've always got that sort of in the back of your mind that that I need to have something that's going to make me happy or make me successful. But I think ultimately it's just about being happy. As much as I enjoy what I do, like it is just about being happy and feeling content.
I love that. And I think that leads perfectly on to my final question. So Jacob Pountney, 26-year-old fashion designer. Take yourself back again to your 10-year-old self, kind of sat in your bedroom wondering what you wanted to do. Looking forward kind of at where you are now, would that 10-year-old boy be happy or be proud of the person you are now?
Yeah, I think I probably would, you know. I think I would. I think if you'd have said like to me, this is what you are actually going to do, then yeah, I think I would. I think I would be happy. I think like, you know, there was always that little doubt in the back of my mind, like, is this going to be possible? And like, I remember actually like some friends of my grandparents saying once, like when I was about to go to uni, about to go into studying fashion, and they were kind of like, but it's not on the national curriculum, is it? So that almost kind of pushes you.
That old
like,
chestnut.
That almost kind of limits your career options further. Yeah. And I guess that, you know, when I remember kind of a lot of people kind of just assume that if you're going to do a creative subject, then you are just going to end up just doing the same thing.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being a teacher at all. Like I'm not saying that, but people just assume that that's what you're going to end up doing, or just end up just, you know, just doing just something that's not, you know, that you're not actually going to be able to do it. So I guess, you know, I remember things like that. That kind of makes me think, no, actually, no, I'm here and I do it, and I'm working in it, and
that was perfect.
I feel like you're one of the very few people that your job is like an active representation of a genuine interest of something you had. Whereas I feel like a lot of people, they get put down by people saying like arts isn't a good enough industry to go into, so then they become a lawyer, but then deep down it's like,
I wish I was that fashion designer.
Their interest, whereas from everything that you've said the whole way through,
you just
acted upon your initial
beliefs,
interest, and then now, like,
I think,
and I'm pretty happy with what you do, which is, I don't know, it's just nice to hear.
I'm glad that kind of, I guess, you know, sometimes maybe naivety and being a daydreamer does help, because I think that probably got, but don't get me wrong, like there's been a lot of kind of, you do have to kind of get used to rejection, like especially kind of looking for my first role after COVID, after finishing my internship. I think I had about 13 unsuccessful interviews before I got that one.
That's what makes winning so much better.
I must have applied for about over 200 jobs, I think.
Really?
Wow. A lot. And it's not sort of, I think like, I remember as well, like some people would kind of think, well, what's the point in me doing this if I'm having all these interviews and not being successful? But I remember people kind of saying, no, the industry's like that. You have to keep going. You will get there, and you will. And I'm here from my experience. You will get there.
Don't give up.
Jacob, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having a chat with us.
Thank you really good chat.
It's been such a great chat. I think there's so much to learn from that. Anyone who's going into fashion design, or even if you're just thinking about going into a creative industry, I think it shows that there's so many different possibilities. But thanks so much for listening or watching. If you're watching on YouTube, you could leave us a like, subscribe, and Come back next week for more.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Thanks so much.